Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson. I am the voice of fate. I love that. We are going to have such a terrific show tonight, and I am going to get into that in just a second because, oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I know y'all are too. But all this stuff that is going on around the world, truly, but particularly what is happening in our country, is hideous. We are beings that are capable of altering the reality that is around us. We have spirits and or souls, whatever you want to call that. We have the opportunity to ask for divine intervention, and that happens. We have a hideous situation where justice needs to be served, and justice does not move as quickly as we would like to see sometimes. So I am just, I am trying to manifest a healing for my nation and a healing for my people, because we are all each other's people. Every one of us. If you live here, you're part of the us. It's not just the United States. We are a people. And I support anyone who is looking for equality and doing things in a lawful manner. I struggle, although I know the emotions involved, I struggle with lawlessness because it seems like people the minority of people, not the ones really feeling this, actually go out and behave in manners that do not do a thing, not one darn thing, to move the conversation forward. In fact, they set it back, sometimes decades. So what we need to do is come together, the people who are sane and not criminal and able to converse and maintain. We have to have that conversation. It is dadgum time we have that conversation. So, they always say the situation depends on whose ox is being gored. This does not. This was a human being, and this needs to be about that human being. Quit bringing your agenda to this. It needs to be about life and death. And wrongful death needs to be taken care of. We are a society of laws. Those laws have to be followed. The policemen involved did not do that. But the people responding in kind are not fixing anything. They are only deepening the void between the people that want to get this taken care of and make sure it doesn't happen again. So let's come together. I always say this at the end of the shows. Y'all know I always do, but be the change. We can manifest this stuff, okay? We are spiritual beings. We are human. We can fix this. We don't have to go and hate our brother in the street just because they look different from us. Let's try to understand that we're all trying to fix this. I'm devastated. I can't believe something like that would happen in this country. But I also can't believe the stuff following it did either. So we're all about love. That's what we're supposed to do. So that's enough of that. Everybody, I don't even know how this political box got under my feet. I hate when that happens. But I have got to tell you about what a fantastic show this is going to be tonight. I am so glad that this gentleman reached out to me, and this is going to be fun. Kevin Killen is a lifetime experiencer of paranormal activity. I put in the blurb since age 5. It was age 4. And he has written a book about the things that he's seen, the things that he's researched, trying to understand what was actually happening to and around him. That's not always easy, right? We all know that. And he goes into his experiences. He has lived primarily in Virginia and Pennsylvania, except for a brief time being born and living in the Philippines, and everyone is going to be jelly of that because that is a beautiful area. But the paranormal experiences have seemed to be just about everywhere that he has lived. The book is written in a free-flow conversational manner. It is something that I found to be refreshing. So I think you will too, because it just kind of shares these experiences so that you can go, wow, I've seen something of that. It goes right down from, hearing another kid in the house and the mom saying, well, that's our little boy, and I'm your little boy, okay? I'm the baby. And it just kind of moves on from there. It's very personal. It's very evocative. I think it's great. And Kevin, I'm so glad you're here to share this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat, for having me.
Well, I am really looking forward to this conversation because we actually share a lot of the same ideas about stuff. I like that you started reading as soon as you could read, right? You started reading about anything and everything paranormal, trying to understand what you were seeing and hearing. I think that's fascinating. Why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about what led you into all that?
Sure. Before I do that, I loved your intro, and I found that quite fitting that you're in Birmingham, Alabama, which, of course, the great Martin Luther King Jr. had a lot to do with back in his time to heal
and we
the
know
nation.
about racial strife.
Absolutely. So I thought that was very
we're the epicenter,
fitting.
And we know when people are trying to play us too. So when people get on those buses and come here and try to start stuff, they're usually the only ones marching. So
Absolutely.
Just saying that we know that. We've been through that. My dad was in the the National Guard at that time. And his uncle was the sheriff of Jefferson County.
Oh, wow.
So we know about racial divide. And we also know that it doesn't matter what your friend looks like if they are a good human and a true friend. It doesn't matter. Orange, purple, blue, green does not matter. So I was raised to never worry about what someone looked like or talked like or what kind of, if they're good, kind, and decent, what more can you ask for in a friend?
Absolutely.
But yeah, we do know about that. Thank you for, I never tell people that information, but somehow it feels relevant. My dad was almost court-martialed because of his refusal to do things that were being asked of him.
Wow.
So, and he didn't care. We always had everybody in our home. Didn't matter. We, went to the Talladega School for the Deaf and Blind every other Sunday. I used to miss Batman regularly because of that, but hey, I was 6. I didn't care. But, because they did events and stuff like that. My dad was truly a citizen of the world, and he tried to raise us to be that as well. And
That's great.
I like to think he succeeded.
That's awesome. Yeah, I bet you got a ton of stories you could tell.
I don't tell those. But I actually do, because thank you for taking time out of your interview to have this part of the conversation. But, I was actually, my dad worked for Sears, which was a national corporation, and people came here to work, and everybody came to our house for dinner. You never knew who was going to be sitting around the table on a weekend night. And I learned a lot when people from other countries would meet him as my children were growing up and would be at soccer fields and whatnot. People always thought he was a diplomat. He was not. But he really was a global citizen back before that was even terminology. So we don't do things because of what someone looks like. But if somebody's a schmuck, you can call them that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And there is a lot of healing that needs to be done in the country, unfortunately. But like I said, I think being spiritual beings, we can get past all this, hopefully, somehow.
I think so too. I just absolutely cannot. Well, I cannot believe, and I'm going to put this out here because that man murdered the other man in front of his co-workers who were armed and could have stopped him, in front of the people that were filming that who said that they were afraid of the pepper spray. They were threatened with pepper spray. A man was dying in front of them. Somebody should have stepped up. And I don't care if it was one of the other police. I don't care if it was, the medic that was there. I don't care if it was someone in the crowd. Everyone there watched that man die.
Yeah.
Not just the police, not just the crowd. Everyone there watched that man die. And, I just think that's terrible. And I can't imagine that I would have just stood there. I'm not that personality. So it just is. And now there need to be repercussions for all of the criminality that's going on. And, everything needs to be addressed. But it won't be. Because that's a hard conversation to have, and nobody wants to take the first step.
That's right.
So that's why we need to put our spirituality into play, because you know what? That heals. We can heal this ourselves by being the people we were made to be, the people we were created to be.
Yes.
Honoring those soul contracts that we make when we come back, if that's what we do. So, enough about that, because we're almost to the break. You got about 4 minutes to tell everybody everything they need to know about you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
no pressure, man. No pressure.
Yeah, none at all. Excuse me. My first experience happened in Evanston, Illinois. As you mentioned earlier, I was actually, I think I was, I was 5 at the time. My father was a journalist, and he used to take my brothers to sporting events with him. And this particular night, he had gone to St. Louis to cover a basketball game. So it was just me and my mother, and we lived in a big rambling house, turn of the century, 1900, turn of the century, big brick edifice there in Evanston, and big, drafty, and creepy, and especially to a 5-year-old. So me and my mother were downstairs eating dinner, and I distinctly heard footsteps upstairs, and we had a wooden floor in the second floor landing there, hallway. And I turned to my mother. I said, "Well, who's that?" Knowing there was nobody else in the house, and my mother said to me, "Well, that's my little boy." And of course, that confused me, because I was the only little boy in the house that I knew of that was there. But she told me later that she said that because that was all she could think of to keep me, to not get me scared, because she thought somebody broke into the house, and she was trying to figure out, okay, what to do, because here's a mother and a child, somebody's breaking in the house. But so that was my first experience in the paranormal at 5, and I distinctly remember that clearly to this day, just hearing footsteps as if somebody were physically walking up and down the hallway.
I just find that so odd, because I can just see me looking at my son at that age and saying, "Oh, that's the other little boy." He would have done as you did and just taken a front at that. What? I'm the boy. So, but she did, on the spur of the moment, come up with a pretty good answer. Because if it was a child spirit, then you wouldn't be afraid of it. Were you?
Well, like I said, at that point in time, I didn't understand any of that. So as I look back on it later, it very well could have been, because I found out later on, I think I touched upon this a little bit in the book, is that my mother had a miscarriage. And maybe if that were true, that could have been the soul of my brother or sister. So that very well could have been.
That was a neat take on that.
But at that point in time, I had no idea. All I knew, and I remember not being scared, just being quizzical, because I knew everybody else was out of the house. Just kind of being matter of fact, like any child would be at that age. Just who's that? That, and my mother doing that. And again, for all her faults, my mother was a wonderful woman. So, God bless her, and I love her. So that was great that she came back with that, and I never really talked to her much about that later on as things went on, but I wish I would have before she passed on. Maybe got a little more clarity on that situation.
Well, we always do. And it's terrible, because I'm old and I don't have anybody really to go back to at this point to ask questions. And I wish I had answers to some of the things that ponder you so. At least you took advantage of being able to do that a bit before she passed away. I liked that you were able to be with her before that happened, but I'm stepping ahead. So we are going to go and take this break, and we will be back, and Kevin is going to actually get to share his information, and we're going to discuss his book. So y'all come back. Thank you so much.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times? That might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and we are here talking with Kevin Killen about his book, Ghosts and Me, and the experiences that went into compiling that. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate that we were able to address that topic. It's such a sensitive one, and it's so volatile right now because there are so many emotions involved. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's one of those things where you got to really tread lightly with, but it's good to kind of get it out there because it is so relevant to everyday life at this point. So yeah, I was glad that we were able to kick around that for a little bit.
Well, me too. And I'm glad also that we can actually do that. You know, there's been not a lot of conversation. There's been a lot of anger.
Yes.
So, and you know, that manifests some pretty bad stuff too. You know, if we're talking about paranormal experiences and things of that nature, that can create that because you've been researching this for, 30 years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was the thing that you found most common? What would be going on in your world when you would start having these experiences in your homes?
Honestly, it varied from place to place. As I discussed in later chapters of my book, to not to give too much away because I want people to purchase it and enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I at one point in time I was living with I was involved with a psychic witch who I had a a 10-year relationship with, and we I learned a lot from her. I think hopefully maybe I taught her some things, but again, with her, with a lot of the energy and things like that were going on in our lives, a lot of paranormal activity happened around her, and I think that was like the catalyst for that. And also one of my other exes in Pennsylvania also had very dark energy about her, and there was a lot of things that went on with her because she was not a bad person. She just had a lot of dark energy around her, and a lot of negativity from some of the things that she may have done long before she met me. So that's pretty much what I found, is that usually it's kind of the people I was involved with.
Were the people you were involved with actually affect what kind of experience you were having, or was it just more of the interaction of y'all's energy created what was happening?
I think it was a little bit of both, quite honestly. And again, some of the places that I've lived they have a tremendous history. Obviously, Virginia has a lot of negative history with the wars and the deaths and things like that. I lived, as I explained in the book, not too far from some battlefields out there, and I had some experiences out there with some phenomena that I couldn't quite explain. And the part of Pennsylvania I was living in was southwestern Pennsylvania, which is coal mine region. And it's a very rural area, so there was a lot of tragedies there with the mines exploding, things like that. So there was a lot of energy, both positive and negative, in a lot of the places that I've lived, and I think there was a catalyst for that.
That's an interesting point of view, and one that I agree with. I think that the land retains memories. I found when I go to battlefields that you can really feel that. You know, when I went to Gettysburg, I've said this before, and I think it's very applicable now. You know, the only thing that I got the first time I was there were voices saying, you know, do not let this happen again. This cannot happen again. Do not allow this. And I was just kind of like, I'm one person. Hello. You know, but that was really the only information I was given while I was there. And I would never have thought that we would be at this point in our history. So maybe they were just trying to let me know, you know, hey, you've got a voice, you've got a platform. So I try to kind of do the do no harm thing, you know?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I've actually had a couple people actually, I don't know that, but I've actually read about some people that have gone to like Gettysburg or Antietam, and the message that they're picking up on the is the EVPs or on the spirit box is something relative to like you were saying, don't let this happen again, or you know, stop this or whatever. And it's kind of interesting to think that if these spirits are intelligent, that they're actually kind of, you know, telling us, the living, that, hey, don't do this again. This is not good. And it's interesting because, you know, you go at other places and you might get, you know, maybe one or two words of whatever, and they don't really make any sense. But it's just interesting that a lot of these battlefields, they have presumably soldiers coming through telling us, you know, hey, let's not do this again. So that's really interesting you said that.
Well, I didn't know anybody else got that, but I also expected a lot of fear, and what I got was more resoluteness. I mean, they were just kind of resolved to the fact that this was going to happen. It wasn't, oh my gosh, you know, I'm terrified. It was just well, I'm dead if I run, I'm dead if I fight. You know, maybe I can survive fighting and be a prisoner. It was a really weird place. But I do know that the, you know, do not let this happen again was very emphatic, and it was repeated the whole time I was there.
Wow, that's really interesting that you got that.
I think so too, because I'm not psychic. So I am not normally. I am, but I'm not, you know, normally with dead people. I just know things about living people. And in this particular case, it did it with the dead. So that was kind of an odd moment. I think they thought their message was so important they found a way to get it through.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like that's what they were doing.
I'm sorry. What were you going to say? I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was finished.
Well, we have someone who would like to know where in southwest Pennsylvania that you live, because she's from Newcastle.
Oh, wow. My mother was born in Newcastle.
Get out of town. Small world.
No, my mother was born in Newcastle and grew up in Newcastle. She left to go to California when she was 18, but yeah, she was from Newcastle. My great aunt Hazel, who I believe is still alive at 102. I haven't seen her forever, but when I was up there, I visited her when I was going to school up there. I lived in first Greene County, Pennsylvania, and then I lived in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, which is like 35, 45, 50 miles southwest of Pittsburgh.
Too neat. It's a small world, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's okay, because Denise in chat also lived in areas near where you were. She lived in Baltimore for some time. And
okay.
You were talking about a place at one point in the book that was relevant to her too, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. People will ask a lot. So
good. That's good. I love to have interaction with fans of the paranormal.
Well, I think that it's interesting. So, where would you like to go with this? Because I think people would like to hear a little bit more about your history before you got actually into delving into the answers, trying to find answers. Because you lived in that house where you had the footsteps and some other things. Just about every house y'all moved into had some sort of paranormal activity.
Yeah.
Through your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I figured out, or at least I seem to have figured out that I'm the catalyst for it, being an empath. So I have a lot of the energy that attracts them. I refer to myself as the roadside motel that says vacancy. You know, I'm the beacon.
Yes.
So spirits can see and say, oh, hey, this guy can see and hear us, so let's go over here and see what we can get. And that's kind of really what they do. I joke about that a lot, but I think that's honestly true when it comes to me, because like I said, I can't explain it any other way, that I've been to different places. In my current workplace right now is very active, and they let me know when they want to say, hey, oh, Kevin's here, so we'll say hi to him. That they let me know at whatever time. You know, they'll be the first ones to, you know, slam the doors or throw books off the shelves, or, you know, talk behind me at 3 o'clock in the morning when I know nobody's up. So so it's me. But going into the history, I was living in Chicago for about 2-3 years, and then I moved to Northern Virginia, Falls Church area, which is about 15 miles or so away from Alexandria, where I live now. I basically grew up in Falls Church, so I consider that home. And the house I lived in there was about 45 years old. It wasn't a very old house, and there were a few things, that happened there. But one of the two substantial things that really got me into the paranormal was, the first one was I lived, the master bedroom upstairs had, again, wooden floors. It must be something with wooden floors and me. I don't know. But I'd hear footsteps there every night, like footsteps in my room. And, you know, the way it was set up is I'd turn on my right side, so I had my back towards the door, and I'd always hear this. Well, I've watched enough horror movies at that time. I wasn't going to turn around and try and figure out, okay, what am I going to see when I turn over, right?
Absolutely.
It was just, you know, footsteps all the time, like walking, like right up to the bed and then walking away, distinctive footsteps. So I was about a year out of high school, and again, as I explained in the book, between me and my brothers and everything, we had, it was like Grand Central Station with friends and stuff. There was never a quiet moment in that household because, 3 older brothers plus me and my mother, there's a lot of people. But this one particular night, everybody was gone, and I couldn't believe it. And so I decided to try and get an EVP. So what I did is, and for some of the older fans that may be listening, that will remember this, back in the day, I had a boom box that had the detachable speakers and the double tape decks.
Absolutely. So you could burn your own.
Absolutely. So I popped in.
Not that we were illegal, activity people or anything.
Exactly. So I popped in the 60-minute Max Elkins tape and hit the play and record button. And I asked them, I said, if there's anybody here, please show me. So I went ahead and let the recorder play, and I went over to a friend's house for about an hour and a half, came back. Nobody was in the house still. I went ahead and rewound it and played it. I got nothing but white noise until about maybe the last bit of the tape. There was some it sounded like somebody was literally beating on top of the machine, and that really scared me because I was like, well, nobody's here. Nobody knew I was doing that. What is this? Then a few seconds later, there were some bleeps and some blips. I don't know what that was either. Then in the final 10 seconds of the tape I got this really, what I don't like to use the D word, i.e. demon, but this voice was very demonic sounding and said, I have shown you, ha ha, and laughed at me. And I literally fell out of my chair because I was so scared, because I was like, what the hell just came through here? That I ran out of the house with my heart racing and this and that. But whatever that was, and I don't think it was a demon at the time. I think it was just, there was something in the house because there was a lot of negative emotions in that house. So I think maybe that's what it was, just a negative spirit, but they wanted to mess with me. And they did. But that was really the catalyst, because after that, that's really what kicked it all off for me. Like, I really wanted, hey, what is this? What's going on here? I really want to find out what is going on. And that's really what started everything in motion for me to this day, from then to now, with different experiences and trying to figure out what this is all about.
I am a lot older than you, and I am still trying to figure out what it's all about. So I feel ya. But, I mean, if I had gotten that response, I would have probably run too at that age. But, it's really an interesting thing that you went, that you took that initiative just trying to get answers, because it's hard. It's hard to know what to do. I mean, I know you're reading everything you could get and look at, I'm sure you were watching shows because, my grandma was New Age before New Age was cool, and she always had something of that nature on television with whatever, talk show host was bringing in psychics or mediums or, astronomers. But so there was a lot of information being tossed about at that time that people seem to have forgotten was out there. Was your mom into any of that too?
See, that was the thing. My mother, she was not, that I knew of. I believe because she was Irish American, she had a gift. I think she did have the sight, which is basically, she had the gift of psychic and the intuition. I think she was an intuitive, I believe, but because she had some problems with substance abuse and other things, she never was fully able to develop it. But thinking back on it now, and I go on this a little bit in the book, talking to her further, having some experiences, and the things that she told me that led me to believe, because she was very wise. So the things that she told me, it led me to believe, but she never came right out, never said that. That's my intuitiveness, is I think that she did. But we never, and again, that's one of my biggest regrets, is that I never really got to sit down with her and say, hey, Mom, this is going on with me. What do you think it is? I mean, there was just bits and pieces, and there was sometimes she wouldn't go into anything. Like the house I just described with the EVP. I had asked her about that later, and she said, when there were people out of the house, she'd hear some weird stuff, but she never explored that and never really talked to us about it. But again, there was a lot of negative emotions there. Right. But yeah, I think she just really had had something. And I think that was because she was Irish American, and her family going back, she was, I think second generation Irish. So her grandparents actually came from Ireland. So I think that again, and I again describe that in the book about my Celtic heritage. I think that's one of the reasons I have what I have, and what I go through is because it's been passed down from my generations, being from Ireland.
Well, there is so much to go with that. I agree that different cultures are more open to it, and it's almost like it's gifted. So I just said that backwards, but it doesn't have to be like, I am Native American to a large extent, and German and Irish. So, there's a little bit of stuff going on there too. And I do agree. The little people are Irish and Native American. It comes from all different spectrums of my cultural histories. So, just like your mom's. So just like yours.
Definitely. Yeah, I have the German part in me as well. I don't have the Native American though, but I do have a lot of the European blood in me. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from with me is that, and again I love folklore. I read Celtic mythology and folklore, all the time. That's one of my favorite subjects, and I think that kind of has to go part and parcel with again probably my heritage, or and I believe in reincarnation. So I'm sure somewhere down the line I lived in Ireland as different people. I want to explore. I want to do past life regression, but we can bring that up later because I haven't touched that subject yet. But I've wanted to do that just to see how many times I've come through here, because I think I've been at least 5, and the people that I actually, with some of the people that I know who are intuitive or psychic, have actually told me a few things, and I actually kind of guessed that. But yeah, I think that's what it is. A lot of this has to do with my cultural heritage.
I think so too. Well, we are coming up on our next break, so we're going to go ahead and duck out of here to get that business taken care of. And I am so glad you're here. I am having a good time. Thank you for joining me.
Too.
So, everyone, y'all just come right back with us. See you in a couple.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back. I am so glad you're here joining us tonight on Fate Mag Radio. My guest tonight is Kevin Killen, and I hope that you have enjoyed the first couple of segments because this is some interesting stuff. I am very enthused that we are having these conversations. Now, we were just talking during the break about how not everybody who comes back was a former queen. Not everybody was Cleopatra. You know, not everybody was Mark Anthony. But, you know, there are a lot of the people because we're talking about regression. And when people do a regression, they're not necessarily going to like that they were, you know, somebody who was indentured when they came to the United States. There were a lot, especially of the Irish, who came as indentured servants. I mean, they were basically just given away. So it's just crazy. I'm glad that you brought that up. Are you there?
I'm glad that we were able.
Good.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I was trying to think what to say there, trying to formulate a thought about that. But I'm glad I brought that up too, because like I said, I've heard people who will actually say that, and I know that at least in my gut, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you were never a king. You're just telling these people that, so they'll say, oh my God, you were a king back in, you know, this time, and oh, I'm going to look upon you as, you know, and it's just like, yeah, get out of here. You were a cockroach. Okay, that's, you know, accept it. I mean,
well, you know, everybody has to go through things, and I think because, yeah, you don't get to be the queen every time you show up.
Right, and again, it's you know, and it's just, again, with past life regression, that's something that I'm glad I touched upon, because that's one thing I'm really interested in doing, and I actually have some friends who are hypnotherapists that I have yet to go under the spell, if you will, and do that. But I'm interested in doing that just to find out, you know, how any of this works, and that to me is something else worth exploring too. So I'm excited about trying to do that as well.
Well, you know, the only people I have spoken to who do regression therapies are people that deal with UFO abductees, UFO experiencers.
Right.
And that is some fascinating stuff. And it's also paranormal. You know, people are always like, why do you study ufology? I was like, it's all paranormal. It's all related. If it's not normal, it's paranormal.
Yes.
But would you be flipped out if you went through a regression and found out that you had some experiences of that nature? Or do you think you already have?
I don't think I already have. I think it would be cool. I mean, quite honestly, I think it'd be neat. You know, to me, but again, like I said, at this point in time, with 30-something years of doing this, things do surprise me, but not like they used to be before. Like I said, I'd find it fascinating. You know, so I think that'd be really cool. That if I was an alien abductee, you know, I'd be like, oh, cool. You know, I'll tell my story.
Yeah. Well, I think that based on the ones that I know personally, be careful what you're open to. Because I don't know, out of all the people I know who have had abduction experiences ongoing, only one is comfortable with that. Really.
Yeah.
So I think I think that when I listen to those people sharing their experiences, it just blows my mind what they've gone through. And they don't always know. So I have a friend in Mississippi that was taken unawares, as it were. He was fishing, trying to fish. And he and his friend were taken. So, and he was ready to take somebody out. He was angry, and, you know, because it hurt.
Right.
And
oh, yeah.
when they were put back where they were taken from, you know, he was all bloodied up on his shirt and stuff. He was ill. So be careful what you ask for. Of course, they went straight. They went straight to the police. I don't know anybody else at all that I've ever talked to that went straight to the police to file a report. So
yeah,
that was interesting.
Oh yeah,
Great
definitely.
guy. Great guy. I'll hook you up and give you his name. His name, I'll just tell Calvin Parker. But he's brilliant, and he's been on the show, so it's fun. And Rick in chat wants to know, do you have flashbacks or like inklings of a former life? Do you feel that happens to you?
I'm sorry, you cut out there in the beginning, Kat.
That's okay. Rick wants to know, do you feel like you have flashbacks or just inklings of memories of a former life?
Yes. Yeah, they're snippets every once in a while, and I know, and this is one thing that I've actually looked into, and I haven't really studied it too much, but I believe this is kind of hand in hand here, is I've had a lot of deja vu experiences, and I think that has a lot to do with certain things, because that, like, most people who have deja vu experiences will be like, shrug it off. Me, it'll bug me for like 2 days, because I'll sit there and think about it, like, where the hell do I know this from? Why do I know this person or this name or this scenario? And I'll think about it. So to me, it's this is what usually happens, and I'll think to myself, okay, well, maybe this has something to do with whatever. I've been called many times an old soul. And I've been told by a lot of people, because when people would tell me, I was like, well, what does that even mean? And then people would explain it to me, and then it does make sense. I mean, for instance, my musical taste is very eclectic. I can go back into like Baroque music all the way up until today's music and listen to genres in between. And I love all sorts of music, and I don't know where that comes from. So things like that'll crop up, but I think that kind of is. But yeah, the deja vu part, that's what really kind of gets me to thinking. Or I'll read something and I'll get a deja vu feeling from that, or watch a movie or whatever, and that'll happen. So that's where I kind of think that comes from. But that's definitely where I think it comes to.
I would agree with that. I think deja vu is almost always relevant to something either in your past, or like mine protects me a lot. I'll recognize and experience, and if it worked out great doing this, I'll do that. And if it didn't work out so great, then I'll find another alternative. It really has. It saved my life about 3 times so far.
Wow, that's awesome.
Let's see. Sherry wants to know, what's your all-time favorite paranormal experience that you've had to date?
Gosh, this is a good question. That's one thing I love doing these shows, because I'm always getting questions that I'm never prepared for, and that's great, because that gets me thinking. And I've had so many. I would have to say, probably the two that really stick out in my mind the most are the EVP, the first EVP I caught that I just explained, and the second one was the female spirit that joined me in the shower. Elizabeth, yes. she was an interesting one. So would you like me to elaborate on that for the audience?
To a PG degree.
Yeah, it's totally PG. Yeah,
we are family, or we're not family oriented, but we try not to slam at home too much.
Absolutely, Kat. So when I was living in Pennsylvania, Western Virginia, the Winchester, Frederick County area, I would notice that when I was taking showers, I would have this cold air swirl around me. It wasn't like a breeze that would come in like if the shower was open or so. It would swirl around me literally, and it was just like, it would bug me. I was like, that's not normal. What is this? So, I do the whole, the shower wasn't open. Let me peek my head out, and the window's not open either. But this would happen, frequently. And I was living with Cheryl, who's the psychic witch. And I told her, I said, hey, this is what's going on. Do you have any idea what this could be? And she said, that's Elizabeth. And I was like, well, who's Elizabeth? And she said, Elizabeth she's here. She's from like the pioneer times is what she was picking up. That I reminded me of her husband, apparently, and her husband had passed on, and they're not together, I guess, in the afterlife or whatever. But so just my mannerisms and everything, I guess, reminded me of her, so she wanted to be closer to me. And I said, well, can we get her not to do that? Because I'm getting really freaked out here, because this is kind of, So she, Cheryl told me, said, well, just tell her, hey, would you please not do that anymore. It's bothering me, and that should stop. Well, I ended up doing it, and it did stop. But that was, yeah, it was crazy. It was for like a couple of weeks. It was just constant. It was just a cold wind caressing you. That is exactly what it was, and that's how I described it in the book. But I think that's definitely one. And she was with us for a little while, and then when we moved back to Pennsylvania, she disappeared. I don't know what happened. She must have moved on or whatever. But yeah, so that and the EVP were probably the two most that really stick out in my mind to this date.
Well, both of those would. So I don't think people realize that sometimes there are spirits that are just a little too intimate. And, I would consider being in the shower with me to be so.
Absolutely.
But I will tell you about someone who had experiences relevant to that, and I don't know if I could get him back on my show. He's gone on to be a prim and proper book publisher now, so he's a wonderful man, but his first book was called Ghost Sex. And
really? Wow.
it was quite enlightening, but it was actually a factual story, so that's why he wrote it.
Wow.
But
wow, that's neat. I'd like to read that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's on Amazon, and the actual title is Ghost Sex: A Violation. It's written by Gavin L. Davies, is his name, and he is a brilliant author. But it was eye-opening, and I didn't know how to address that topic because it's not something I had come across, and I had not had any kind of experience of that nature. It seems to happen more, or men seem more willing to relate that, I have found, because
yes,
I ask, if it's somebody having are you being infringed on? Do you feel like your space is being violated? Does it get to where that's extreme? If you're investigating, you need to know the detail. I don't need to know all the details, but is this happening? Because if something is that comfortable with violating you, then you have a real issue, I think.
Right, absolutely. Oh yeah, totally.
Have you talked to anyone else in the course of your paranormal history that shared something like that with you?
No, honestly, I have not talked to anybody like that. I've read some accounts from other people that have gone through things like this. But no, personally, I've never talked to anybody that's actually had. I've talked to people who have had certain experiences, like being touched or their hair pulled or things like that, but never anything like this where they were actually coming to the shower. So no.
Well, Sherry in chat says that she loves Winchester, Virginia, and the whole city needs to be investigated further. Wow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Is it really that active?
Oh, yeah. Well, Winchester was turned over between the North and the South 71 times during the Civil War. So it was almost like every other week it seemed like it was a northern stronghold, then the South got it, then the North got it, and they have, it's such a rich history. They've had think of it, and that's one of the things that I thought, because they have a beautiful walking mall down the middle of the city, and I used to think Patsy Cline walked through here, Lord Thomas Fairfax walked through here. Stonewall Jackson came through here, Jeb Stuart, all these great people came through here, and you could feel the energy. The energy is it has its own feel and energy that I've never felt anywhere else in another city. But yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Well, I will have to check that out with a full bag of equipment in my car. Well, we're at the top of the hour. This time is just going. I love when it's like a two-way conversation, and then it gets to be a three-way conversation with the chat room and stuff. I love things like that, but it does make the time go so quickly. We're going to take our break, and this is a great time to fill up your beverage container or stretch your legs, maybe do a few cartwheels, as my friend Brian D. Parsons would say. But mainly, come back. This is news. Maybe we'll find something good. It's a little doubtful today, other than that we did dock efficiently and effectively at the space station. Go team. And I'm so proud of our country. We just keep on keeping them. And I know that we're going to keep on keeping them through everything that's going on right now. Because you know what? We are good people. We'll make it so. But we'll be back. Y'all come back too.
Support for NPR and the following message come from DuckDuckGo, the internet privacy company committed to raising the standard of trust online. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. Protests against police violence continued across the nation today, including Washington, with a march from a historically black university to the White House. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more.
The peaceful protest march went nearly 2 miles from Howard University to Lafayette Park, just across from the White House. Protesters stretched for blocks and chanted about George Floyd, the Minneapolis man who died after a cop kneeled on his neck. And they also chanted the names of other black police violence victims. Protesters additionally chanted their anger at President Trump. The marchers remain in Lafayette Park, where as of Sunday evening, protesters were lined up at barricades facing a line of park police, as well as a line of Secret Service in riot gear. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News, Washington, D.C.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says mistakes were made in the response to protests last night after peaceful protesters and journalists were tear-gassed, shot at with rubber bullets, and pepper sprayed. As NPR's Leila Fadel reports, it happened even though they had credentials and their hands were in the air.
I'm so sad about those unfortunate incidents, and I really hate that happened.
But Ellison calls this moment a difficult situation. The city and state want the streets at night to, quote, restore order after hundreds of buildings were damaged or burned in continued protests in the Twin Cities. He says mistakes were made, excesses happened.
That should not happen, and we need to hold folks accountable and reiterate the policy and make sure that people who are just peacefully protesting aren't injured. But we got to the point where after 3 nights of just burning our city down, we had to do something.
Tonight, in Minneapolis and many other cities, a strict curfew will again be imposed. Leila Fadel, NPR News, Minneapolis.
And Seattle is under a 5 p.m. curfew again today after hundreds of volunteers spent the day sweeping up glass and cleaning up from vandalism during Saturday's protest. NPR's Martin Costi reports.
Mayor Jenny Durkin, who's also a former U.S. attorney, says most protesters have been peaceful. And as she's talked to fellow big city mayors, she's come to this conclusion.
Much of the violence and destruction, both here in Seattle and across the country, has been instigated and perpetuated not by the people most impacted by generations of discrimination and institutional racism, but by young white men.
Seattle's African-American police chief, Carmen Best, said while she was angry about the death of George Floyd, she also says she saw, quote, unprecedented hostility toward police who were attacked with bottles and rocks. Martin Costi, NPR News, Seattle.
The price of a gallon of gas is on the rise. The Lundberg survey shows the average price of a gallon of regular rose 8 cents in the past 2 weeks to $2.05 a gallon. That, though, is 88 cents less than it was a year ago. You're listening to NPR News. Pope Francis appeared today at a Vatican window overlooking St. Peter's Square for his first noon address in 3 months as Italy eases coronavirus restrictions. NPR's Sylvia Poggioli reports only a few hundred people came to hear the Pope compared to the tens of thousands who attended the Sunday address before the pandemic.
Pope Francis led the crowd in silent prayer for medical workers who lost their lives helping others. Italy is one of the hardest-hit countries with a death toll of more than 33,000, including hundreds of health workers. Then, departing from his prepared remarks, the Pope said, healing people, not saving money to help the economy, is important. Healing people who are more important than the economy. He did not mention any countries, but it was a clear reference to governments currently weighing whether to reopen their economies to save jobs or to continue lockdowns to ensure the virus is under control. People in the square wore masks and stood well apart from each other. Sylvia Poggioli, NPR News, Rome.
The forecourt in front of Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral has been deep cleaned. It's once again open to the public more than a year after a devastating fire did heavy damage to the centuries-old building. Officials say it took several cleanings to remove the toxic lead dust, a result of the fire. That area will continue to be cleaned, but the cathedral is closed, and it will be for several years during renovations. U.S. futures contracts are trading lower at this hour. Dow futures contract down about 0.7%. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, which makes me the voice of Fate, right? You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. We are having such a great conversation. I have to tell you, Kevin Killen, if you have not read his book, you're going to enjoy it. It is a bunch of stories, all put together, free flow conversation one to another, and some of them are just wicked cool, and the others will make you go, I've got to research that. I love things that make me go to the books. But Kevin, thank you so much for being here. I'm having a great time with you.
Thank you for having me again, Kat. I'm having a blast.
Well, I told you that I missed a question in chat, and we're going to have to go back to it because it is from somebody who has some of the best questions on the planet. I don't know why she won't do her own show. I do. She's a busy mom and wife. But she asks great questions. And she would like to know if there are any, paranormal folklore experiences that you think are real. Like Bigfoot or Mothman or, I guess, Flatwoods Monster. Or any of those things.
Yeah. Honestly, I think pretty much all of them have something to go on. And one thing I want to touch upon that actually ties in with this is in studying the paranormal for the last couple of years lately, I guess is the quantum physics theories that are out there now that are tying things in. And the alternate universes that's really interesting to me. And again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to date myself. Do you remember the old Pac-Man games?
I do.
Okay. Do you remember how you could go out one screen and come out the other?
I do.
That's kind of what I'm thinking that this could be. Like it's like not so much a time shift, but you can go from one universe to the other. And I'm kind of thinking, from what I've researched and heard and everything, that things like Bigfoot and Mothman may be like a time slip. But I definitely think there is something to them. And again, with the Celtic mythology, I definitely believe there's leprechauns.
Yeah.
I definitely believe there's gnomes. They have this thing, the Native Americans talk about the puckwudgies.
Yes.
Those seem like really nasty pieces of business, but I think those are around. I totally believe that. I have a friend of mine who was a practicing a witch, and she was telling me that she had a fairy in her house, and those things, if you don't treat those they're nasty if you don't. And she was like, Kevin, I'm telling you, whether you believe me or not, you have to treat them with respect and kindness, or they're really going to turn your house into chaos. And she gave a couple examples, and she's like, I know it was them. And so, yeah, I do believe in a lot of those things. And I'm glad you brought that up because I would love to go on a Bigfoot expedition sometime.
Right? I think that is fascinating because I have friends that do that. That's their field. And I have been trying to get somebody to take me with them for years. And then I got hurt and I couldn't go and for a long time. And so now I'm just about 100% again. So there's that. It's happening. It's going to happen. I know it is. But I think I have been told by somebody who has researched this for decades that everything, whether it's ufology, spirit, paranormal, cryptids, everything is dimensional. And I trust that source. And they've been researching, and they research with others at their caliber of knowledge in the other fields. And it's almost like a consensus. Quantum entanglements, it's two people sharing an experience but having a completely different one. They're having the same experience physically right there, but they're perceiving it entirely differently. And
right.
I think that's cool. So you're right. The quantum side of these things is just unbelievable. In fact, right before we came on the air, I'm part of the UFO Twitter staff, and one of the physicists had written about, what if the parallel universes are only doing this and then it's doing that? And it's like, I'm going on the air. You can't ask questions like that. Yeah. To be able to focus, I'll be thinking about that for the whole show. Unfortunately, it just this minute came to my mind. But, his comment, just make sure you save enough focus for the ads. But it's interesting. I think that you're completely right. I do think it's the dimensionality that we're going to find to be the key to that.
Right. And it's just, and the one thing I said on another show one time, and the host, was really like, he never heard that before. And I said, well, what if we're their ghosts?
Yep.
And he was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And I was like, yeah, honestly, there could be somebody in this house right now next to me running down the hallway saying, why is some guy sitting in a chair talking? And
he's talking to nobody. There's nobody there.
Yeah. So I'm his ghost. And he was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And I was like, yeah. And again, that's the one thing with this, with all of these, is everything's theory based. Nothing's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, which I love, because it gives, it's always going to be out there, I think, for us to kick around and try to figure this thing out.
It's so funny because I have struggled. I really did. I struggled for a bit trying to understand string theory and get a handle on that. And because some of it is just really hard, as Elon Musk said yesterday, space is hard. Well, so is quantum. Quantum is confusing.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's just, it just keeps pulling me back in. And I am not a physicist. I've never been a math person. But I talk to a lot of them who don't mind the fact that I'm not a genius. And they share a lot. It's fun. I mean, like you said, the possibilities that, when we're seeing someone maybe through a thinning of a veil, or when an opening is occurring and they're seeing us, they're going and telling their friends about it too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of mind blowing to me. It's like the movie The Others. I think that's kind of how they went in that direction. And that actually made me think, wow, what if, so that was actually really cool, kind of thinking about that.
I cannot remember the name of that Matthew McConaughey movie where he got stuck in another, he left to go do something.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot think of that.
I can't either. I'm getting dazed and confused in my head, and I know I know that's totally not it.
Somebody in chat tell me the name of that movie. But anyway, that was where I actually said, in the middle of the theater, I was mortified. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's string theory. All of these little things are working together, and then this little guy, boop, there he is. Oh. And which I found that fascinating, and I was talking with someone who is, my go-to science guy, and I said, so this does this. I said, and that does explain a lot of paranormal, but what about residual hauntings that happen methodically at the same time every time?
Yep.
You can go like clockwork, and like, if she were real, Scarlett O'Hara would be coming down that grand staircase, every fourth Sunday, at 3 p.m. Because there are
Exactly.
hauntings like that. There are hauntings that are predictable.
Exactly.
So that kind of blows that out. So it would all have to be in play, right?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, it's just it's like, you know, I actually use that as an example of maybe possibly another universe type thing. Is, you know, I've heard stories of, like, in England, somebody will be driving down the road and there'll be a legion of Roman soldiers, like, passing by, and there's nothing going on. They're not even looking at this person. They're just walking ahead doing their thing. So to me, it's like, okay, well, that's obviously a residual haunting. How do they get there and why? You know, they paid no attention to the human being sitting there.
They were completely not aware, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
That happens at Chickamauga.
Yeah. And again, I've read about that, and it's just, you know, same thing with Antietam. You know, they have a lot of those too. But again, it's just like, why? You know, why would you want to replay that over and over? But again, that goes into the stone tape theory as well.
Yes. Absolutely, it does. Well, it is the stone tape theory.
Right. Yeah. And again, that makes a lot of sense to me, because when I was in college, I studied broadcasting. So we did a lot of work with magnets and carts and things like that. So that kind of made a lot of sense to me, because I understood how magnification worked on tapes and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. You know, but a lot of people are like, you know, in this day and age, we're like, well, what's that? So,
exactly.
You know, for some of the younger audience, they're like, what's a tape? So it's like,
that is true, and nothing like that to put you in your place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, it's out there with the phone booth. So they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
But
yes, Superman would be hard pressed to make a quick change in today's day and time. I think that's why every so often you'll see a phone booth, is just in case that need arises. And that movie is Interstellar.
Interstellar,
my brain
yes.
just let go of it.
Interstellar, that's it.
Great movie. Oh, and Denise put that in chat, but I missed that. No, it wasn't, although I do love Contact too, but it was Interstellar. Thank you, Denise. I'm sorry I was slow to look. But I think that stuff like that is just fun.
Yeah.
I love playing in that realm. So, well, what is another one of your favorite stories, experiences, not stories? Well, it's in a book, so it could be a story.
Okay, well, I've had... I discussed the one attachment, which was Elizabeth. I had a rather negative attachment, which I go into in the book, which was something I will not wish upon anybody, and I caution people to this day, if you don't know what you're doing, please do not do this. I was in the early stages of dating Cheryl, the witch psychic, and we had a good friend of ours, a couple, that her boyfriend didn't believe in any of this stuff. So we wanted to show him, hey, you know, we're going to show you this. So we did a channeling circle.
Right.
And there was something that popped up in all of our heads. It was like, I don't know what it was. It was very, very evil looking. And we all jumped back.
Yeah. It was very discomforting, just the description.
Yeah. And like I said, as I'm telling you this story, it's still in my head now. I'm actually getting goosebumps again, because this thing was just horrible, whatever this thing was. But so we broke the circle, and after that happened, we all started having bad experiences, and myself was my personality changed. I was like a happy-go-lucky guy, had a lot of friends, talked a lot, very outgoing, loquacious. I turned into a raging alcoholic who didn't want to do anything, withdrawing from the world, wouldn't talk to anybody, wouldn't go outside, closed the curtains, everything was dark.
Completely not you.
Yeah, no, it was, and I knew something was wrong. I was hanging up on friends. They'd call, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not talking, click, and they were like, well, what the hell's going on here? So after about a week or two of this, I told Cheryl, I said, look, we've got to do something, because this is not me, and you know that, and I don't know what's going on here, but And she was like, we didn't close the circle when that thing came through, and we got to get it back because the couple was suffering a lot of things. People were, mechanical breakdowns, appliances breaking down. The guy had a terrible motorcycle accident. So just a lot of things, everybody was suffering. So we finally did a channeling session again, and we're able to close that. And everybody returned to normal gradually. But whatever this thing was just pure evil and nasty. And again, it affected everybody tremendously. I don't know if it was a demon or what it was, but it was just nasty. And that's another one.
Something you don't throw around much. That word.
Yeah. So I'm not even sure what this was, but this thing came from somewhere, and it was because I think that we had collectively opened up. Yes. So again, my feeling is if you don't know what you're doing, don't. Ouija boards. I do not like Ouija boards because I've actually had some experiences with that and know people who have had experiences. And my thing is I get irritated every year, it seems, around Halloween or on Halloween. You get these people who will take a Ouija board to the cemetery. Oh, let's see what we can get.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to know what you can get because what comes through that board is not Uncle Tom or Uncle Jim.
Nope,
like they're telling you.
But it'll try to tell you it is. We have to take a break right quick because I want to continue that topic if you don't mind when we come back.
Sure.
All right. We will be back right after this. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us. And we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Good. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. In publication since 1948. Still the best anomalous magazine out there. And there's a new edition out. So you know what? Go get it. And if you have not renewed your subscription, you have to ponder that, right? Phyllis is putting stuff out, and it is amazing. So I have mine. Just saying. FateMag.com. Check it out. So I am so having fun with you, Kevin. This has been great information. But when we left, we were touching on Ouija boards.
Yes.
And let's let your friends have a moment more. And you can share that. And just tell them Fate Mag wanted to know about them. But seriously, this was, all of the investigators who are in chat are absolutely, I never use Ouijas. Never used one, never will. Me either. Never have, never will. I like to come home with no unwanted guests. Call me old-fashioned. So, I mean, we've had those. We talked about having those experiences where we have to go and kind of clean things up after somebody plays with that toy.
Uh-huh.
So, share away, my friend.
I have a couple good friends of mine that they're in the book towards the end there. What they did is they're younger people, and they decided to, let's get a Ouija board because, we wanted to see whatever. And they tried to tell me that, okay, at first they said they didn't use it. And then finally I was able to get the one off by herself, and I basically interrogated her, and I feel bad about this, but she finally admitted to, I didn't use it, Kevin, but I was over at his aunt's house and they used it, and I wasn't, and I know she was. I told her, I said, you're still lying to me, and I said, and she was like, how do you know that? I said, I'm an intuitive. I can pick up on you. You're lying to me. And she was like, okay. So she finally admitted to doing this, but her house still has residual stuff in here that I'm still trying to get out, because she did that, and actually they were actually in the house. They're no longer, they were a couple. They're no longer together, but they have a child together. So he'll come over once in a while to take care of his daughter and everything, and it's still there. I feel it off of them still. I mean, it's still in the corners of these houses, and there's and people think I'm crazy because people are like, how do you? I said, look, it's kind of like if you're sweeping a house and you get dirt in the corner of the house and you leave the dirt there. That's exactly what this energy, this black residual stuff is. That's the stuff I have to get out of here.
And it's not as easy as just picking up a broom. I mean,
right.
It's really serious.
Yeah. And I discuss it in the book how much that they've suffered and how things have gone wrong for them. And I keep telling them, I said, you opened up something that y'all had no idea what you did,
or how to contain it.
Like, right, and they're just and I told them, I said, look, I know y'all walk away from here and think that I'm crazy. That's fine, but I'm not the ones having the issues, am I? I mean,
touche.
I don't be. Yeah. So I am of the belief, if you do know what you're doing, that's one thing. But so many people don't know what they're doing, think this is a game, and I think a lot of stuff that goes on out here is because people have opened up stuff that they had no business doing, and they didn't know what they were doing. And again, this isn't a game. This is a very old thing. This energy is very old, and people don't seem to understand that. That if you want to go to the cemetery and try and contact, Grandma Louise, that's one thing, but 9 times out of 10, that's not who's going to come back to your house.
Well, and, verbiage matters. You can't just say, if there's anything here, you have to be specific if you even stand a snowball's chance.
Yes.
It's just, you cannot just open yourself up to something, anything. You don't know what's out there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Been there, done that. Not myself, but investigating one. So, investigating more than one, but that one was a doozy. So, have you ever used one? You said you hadn't, so I'm sorry. I'm not doubting you.
Actually, I did, but it was, and again, knowing now what I know then, when I was like 10 or 11, I had a friend of mine that he brought. I think I touched upon this in the book. He brought it over, and it didn't do anything that we know of. And we only played for like 10 minutes, and then we got bored and went out and played baseball. So again, but knowing what I know now, who knows? I mean, it could have opened, because again, that house just had a lot of stuff going on in it, and there was a lot of negative energy throughout that house through the time that we owned it. So I don't know. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But that was the only time that I ever used it, and it didn't, as far as I remember, didn't register letters or anything or spell anything out. And we just, like I said, we got bored with it and left. I don't know if my friend ended up using it. I never did again. But that was like the only time I ever did.
Well, I just absolutely. But yeah, I'm like that really with a lot of ITC devices, because if I don't know who I'm talking to, I am not comfortable opening myself up.
Right.
And like you, I'm intuitive, empathic, and sometimes I know things I have no business knowing. But I also can generally feel the intent of energy around me. You can do that too.
Right.
So, as a rule, you know if that's an okay conversation to have. And people always say, well, what's the difference between using a Ouija board and using a spirit box or this, that, or the other? And I'm like, with a Ouija board, you are giving permission to something, you don't know who or what, to use your body to communicate. You're giving up control. And I am a control girl. I just absolutely will not do that.
Yes.
So, if something is talking to me and my device is catching it, that's fine. I'm not being manipulated to have that communication.
Right.
So, it's like inviting possession. It is inviting possession. What am I saying?
Yeah.
That is, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gotten the same question, what's the difference? And honestly, that's one thing I haven't done yet, and I'm debating whether or not I'd like to do this, is use an SB7 sometime. I've yet to use a spirit box, but people have asked me what's the difference between that and a Ouija board, and I say the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I have them, I use them, but I've had an instance where I had a spirit respond to me in a desperate tone of voice. It was very important to him, and I can't hear them in that white noise. I can't hear that until I get home and I'm running it through Audacity or whatever program of the day it is. And he needed a response at that time, and I didn't respond. So that's why I do not like white noise generators, because I lose the voices in them.
Right.
I also don't care for those devices that intentionally try to creep you out because the voices are coming like this and blah,
Oh, yes.
with all the reverb and stuff. I lose them in that too. Because I don't like apps in the first place. But there are a couple that I'll try. But what do you think of that? I mean, have you tried the apps at all?
Yeah, I did a Ghost Finder a couple times. I don't know. Some of it is kind of interesting. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But then other times it's like, I think for me, if it actually says something that's relevant to what you're doing or where you are, that might be something to it. But then they'll go off on these tangents and just have words showing up like makes no sense. So I don't know. I'm a little leery about things like that. But then also with that being an electronic device and them basically not having any barriers to anything, I mean, who knows? And then again, I think to myself, well, it is me, so if they're gonna, why not?
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm a little suspicious. There's a couple out there that may be pretty good, but I'm like I said, I'm a little leery about these. I mean, yeah, because I actually had a friend of mine when I was working at another job a couple years ago. We had one of our coworkers was he was scared of everything. So he put on his phone, he had this app or whatever that made it look like there was a ghost coming down the hallway at him.
Oh my.
And I was thinking, well, geez, if he can generate that, then anything else that comes on the phone can be fake. So what is that? But yeah, for the most part, I don't put much stock in them.
Yeah. Well, I have just had different programmers talk to me about how easy they are to manipulate through code.
Right.
And our Monday night host of the Paranormal Pride, Denise Pridemore, when she comes across an app, she just breaks it down and goes and looks at the code. And if there are certain things in it, she's like, nope, bogus, don't bother. And I like that. I like having somebody that knows these things, because
right.
If it comes with a dictionary loaded into it, that's probably not the right term. I don't think it's actually a dictionary, but with a word base, a word bank.
Right.
Then, you just can't trust that.
No.
But, well, what do you want to share? I am going to tell you that we have a question that says, do you miss glory days as much as they do in Winchester, Virginia?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh gosh. Oh man. That, the last time I went there, I was actually reporting for the Winchester Star, and we actually had a going away party for one of our fellow reporters, and I got a little too inebriated, and I didn't miss the walk home, or the stumble home, I should say. But yeah, Glory Days was a nice place. I do remember. I have not heard that in about 15 years. That was a blast of the past.
No doubt.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a nice little place. I mean, yeah, I mean, from what I remember, I only went there a couple times, but yeah, it was a nice place.
Well, what would be something that, if someone were going through your book and they're looking at the different experiences and, the way that you were absolutely willing to kind of follow through, try to read somebody else's experiences that might be relevant to what you were seeing, or find out what equipment they were using to do that, what would be your... Two questions. What would be your go-to piece of equipment if you were going to just have one thing that you wanted to take somewhere to do a little investigation, not a full-blown? And the other thing is, where would be your go-to place to do that investigation?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, to answer the second part before the first part, I have a pretty extensive bucket list
right.
of paranormal hotspots, so to speak, to go to. And on that list, probably number one on that list is Salem, Massachusetts.
A good choice, I think.
But Virginia has so many great places because we're such an old state that you can pretty much pick up EVPs when you roll out of bed, just because it's a very old state. There's a lot of stuff. The Richmond area is very active, different places, tons of battlefields, things like that. I would have to say, honestly, if it was not Salem, it would be the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana.
Oh, I have a friend who has gone there and just spent the night. He's a haunted doll collector, so he's kind of brave anyway.
Gosh, that's awesome. I want to go to the Myrtles so bad.
I haven't done it either, and I am just sitting on go for the next time I hear of somebody heading that way. What is it that draws you to that?
I think it's okay, and this is one thing I was gonna tell you off the air, Cap, but I'm gonna tell you on the air because, and again, this is nothing. I love all the people that I've talked to during this journey in the last year and a half with this book, all my Midwestern and Northern people that I've talked to on these shows. But I'm a Southerner. I'm from Virginia. I'm a Southerner, and it's great to talk to a fellow Southerner.
Thank you.
So I think that's what it is, because the South, as you well know, is just, there's something about the South that you can't explain. It's the oldness, it's the history, it's the energy. The energy is so much different in the Southern states as it is in the North. Yes. And that's, I think, one of the things. My thing is I would love to go tour as many antebellum plantations as I could, and I've actually visited quite a few. I've lived, as you well know from the book, I've lived in quite a few states in the South and in the North. But I think that's what it is. It's just the history of that is just so powerful. And the fact that I've seen the pictures of Chloe, the slaves that they've actually and you, I don't know how they could fake that, because it definitely looks like a woman peeking around that corner.
Yes.
But when I
my
see
friend
that,
has pictures of her too.
Oh wow, that's awesome. But it's just I get a feeling when I hear the story or see things on that, there's like this energy. It's kind of like a pulling toward, like, honestly, it's like a pulling, like the energy's pulling me towards that. Like, come here. It's almost like it's beckoning to me. And I know that sounds crazy, but
it does not.
It's something that's saying, come see me. You won't be disappointed or whatever. And it's just the whole, antebellum South and Louisiana, and just all of it. It just draws me, like, every time.
Well, Louisiana is its own thing. There's no place like it. They don't even operate under U.S. law. They operate under Napoleonic Code, including in their court system.
Right.
So that's pretty fascinating, I think. But, I studied as a paralegal. That's what fascinates me. I think that, have you been to New Orleans yet?
See, that's what I was going to say. I have not, and I actually have a couple friends who live down in, they live near Lake Pontchartrain somewhere, but they've been down there for years, and they've been trying to.
Because you got Slidell and Metairie down there too.
That's it, Slidell. Thank you. And they've been trying to get me down there for years, and the time has just never been right, and I've been wanting to. But my father and my sister went to New Orleans last year, and I was so jealous because I want to go to the cemetery and pay my respects to Marie Laveau.
Well, she might not be where you expect to find her. Just saying. When you do go, I have a very good friend who is a voodoo queen down there. Her name is, she actually goes by Bloody Mary, and she has a haunted museum.
That's awesome.
This Bloody Mary's Haunted Museum, it's the murder house on Rampart Street. It's right by the cemeteries. So it is pretty fascinating. And there you go. That's one of my favorite places in New Orleans to go. But we have to go take her. And what?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I know we're coming up on a break.
But Congo Square? Is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say the Laurie House.
Oh, yes. Well, we will be right back, and we'll talk about that if you want to. So, y'all come on back, because we're going to.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and we are about to start our final segment. So if you have questions that you have, that was a crazy word sentence, but if you have questions, get them in here because Kevin is here to answer them, and he has so many just interesting experiences. He's wandered around through all these just weird synchronicities that have lined up in his life that have caused him to go to the books or, go to find someone who could help him with these experiences. So he has done a lot of reading and researching, and he has got some knowledge as well as experience. But, well, we are back. I'm so glad that you are here. I cannot believe we're in our final segment. This is terrible.
Gosh.
I'm having a good time.
Can we do another 2 hours?
We can, but probably not tonight. So there's all kinds of things. I am just watching the world, watching the news, watching the NASA channel, and it's the yin and the yang, isn't it? Got kind of the worst of times going on. It feels like it right now. And then you've got the best of times because we're back in the space game.
Yes.
We're doing our own thing. We're taking precautions. We've put it out to professional, independents who love space and the science and have done such a great job. And I'm going to tell you, I have had times I wasn't sure what I thought about Elon Musk's ideas and goals because he's such a free thinker and he's so... His brain is just so astounding. When that guy says something's hard, you know it's hard.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But he got him up there. So, more power to him. I'm very proud that we are flying into space again.
Yes.
But what else do you want to share? You've got 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay, well, let me go ahead and I can kind of put a little bow on this, I suppose. And I'll go ahead and let you know. Right now with the COVID, finally they're starting to open up some things in Virginia. My next project is going to be battlefield ghosts.
Ooh.
So I'm going to try to go to some battlefields and take my I'm sorry, but backing up to the question you asked me before, what tool I would use and where I would go with the Myrtles. I have a handheld Panasonic with a little micro cassette. I've picked up some of the best things off of that. Although I do now have oh gosh. What are they called now? The digitals, where
The
the
digital voice
tapeless
recorders.
ones. Yes, yeah, I have a digital voice recorder. I've yet to use. Well, I've sparingly used that one. I haven't used it, but that's going to be my go-to thing with the battlefields. But what I'm trying to do is I'm going to go to a couple in Virginia. I'm going to head up to Antietam in Maryland, and then go up to Gettysburg. And what I want to do there is just take my equipment, the little handheld, and go out to the battlefield, walk around, and ask some questions, see if I can get some EVPs, and see where we can go from there. And just do what I'm hoping to do is maybe if the first part does well, then I can do a second part and head farther south and do some other southern battlefields in Tennessee and North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. And do something like that, kind of do it like a part 2. But so that's what I'm going to be working on now, or next. That's going to be my next project. Is going to be a Battlefield Ghost book.
That's going to be awesome. Just researching for that is going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I'm a history buff. I was a history minor in school, and the Civil War has always fascinated me. I've loved that period of time in history. So yeah, you're right. I've done some preliminary research on some of the battlefields in Virginia that I've already been to. So it's kind of in the infancy stages, but now that they've actually started opening the parks up, I can actually physically go there and actually start trying to get some EVPs and talking to some people and going from there. So that's going to be my next one. Also, if I can, I would like to thank Ozark Mountain Publishing for providing me the opportunity to publish my book. This has been a 15-year journey and a lifelong goal of mine to be a published author, and thank Ozark Mountain for actually making that becoming a reality for me.
Aren't they wonderful people?
They are. They've been great to work with. Everybody from the minute that I got the email that they wanted to publish the book to all the way through to the publishing of it coming out. They've just been terrific to work with. So I've had a great experience with them. I just want to give them a shout out. I can't thank them enough for the things that they've done. So, that's kind of it for me. I mean, also if anybody, and again, I love to talk about a lot of different topics, and one of the topics that I didn't get to is that I work as a drug and alcohol counselor.
Oh, you have 10 minutes. We can talk about that because that's something that I wanted to cover with you anyway, if you don't mind.
Okay. Sure. No, that's fine. And the reason I was bringing that up is because I wanted to give my personal email, because I love discourse about anything, really. It doesn't have to be ghosts or anything, but it's KKILLEN, Killen, B as in boy, T as in Tom, @gmail.com. KKillenBT@gmail.com. Feel free to hit me up there. You can also hit me up on my Instagram account, which is Irish, IRISHKEV, Irish Kev. 7147. Sorry, I had to think about that for a minute. Irish Kev 7147 is my Instagram account. You can hit me up there. You can look me up on Facebook. I do have a Facebook account. I usually don't use that too much, but those are the 3 places. And like I said, feel free to hit me up and ask me questions about anything, or it doesn't have to be, it could be ghosts, whatever the topic you want to talk about. I'm willing to talk about anything, and I'd love to hear from people. So hit me up there.
Well, thank you for getting that out. It's so much better just to get that undone, and so you don't have to be watching the clock and cutting your conversation short. But I would like to discuss this because your idea of addictive personalities and the paranormal interacting is, to me, very interesting, because I have seen that happen. So what is your idea, for those who haven't read the book yet, what is your idea for how do spirits and entities know or recognize addictive personalities?
I think a lot of it, in my experience, is that I work with, drug and alcohol recoverers. So I've seen the worst of the worst. I mean, I've seen people on the brink of suicide. I've seen people who have not eaten for weeks and look like they're almost dead. I've seen people miraculously recover to do that. But I think what happens is that their spirits get weakened. And again, their backstories are horrible, obviously, because they're in treatment now. But the things that they've done on the outside, and my fervent belief is that there's so many, there's a balance with everything, good and evil. You have to have, good and evil. So I think what I'm seeing is that when your spirit is weakened from the things that they've done, that they open themselves up to potentially evil things, and evil entities do exist in this world, and they pick them out and they can prey upon them. And I think that's what's happened to a lot of people that I've worked with, and I've known some of the people that I've actually worked with that I've seen come through there their aura is horrible. The color is just there's something going on there. I know that, and they know that, and it's kind of weird because some of them you'll get they'll pick up things on me. They'll know. And then I'll throw something out at them. They're like, how'd you know that? And I'm just like, well, don't worry about it. And they'll come back at me because whatever's on them or with them will tell them, hey, he knows things. So I've actually seen that. But I think that's what it is. And their spirits are weakened. And there's just these, I guess they're called parasitics. I've heard some people call them parasitics that are out there. And again, one of the things that I explain in the book is that when we have a staff office that leads out to the common room, the community area where they all gather and do their groups and everything, and then we go upstairs. What I do there to do bed checks at night. I work overnight, so I usually work the overnight shift. So that's where all the weird things happen at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But I've actually walked through the community room, and it's been like walking through quicksand. The energy is so negatively overwhelming that it's like I'm actually sludging through whatever's there, this negative, nasty energy, and I almost have to get cleansed because it's just been dripping and oozing with whatever stuff out there. And I know that I can feel that. And I've had people come in that have been, their spirit is just torn to shreds, that I feel the evil off of them. And I know that's some people that I work with don't understand that, and they think, they'll give me that sideways look when I tell them that.
Yeah.
But then I'll tell them, read my book and you'll understand. And they're like, how did you know that? But that's what it is. And like I said, I've seen that, and I've actually come to the point now where I'll be in the parking lot and I can actually physically feel if it's going to be a good night or not, because I can pick up like negative energy from the parking lot before I even hit the door. So I'm kind of preparing myself. But I just think that drugs and alcohol weaken the spirit. And some of these people that I've worked with have horrible backstories. They've had a lot of trauma, sexual. They've been abused physically, mentally, whatever. And a lot of them just have horrible spirits. And they bring whatever they did on the outside, they bring them right inside here. And that's it permeates that building.
Well, I have been to visit people that were in facilities such as that, and I had trouble walking in. So I understand what you're describing. It takes a very strong person to overcome that and still go in there to help other people.
Oh, it's not easy at all, and I'm not trying to say but it is. There's times I don't want to go in there.
Well, sure.
Because I know,
mean, it's like a calling.
Yeah. And I've had a ton of people die. I mean, and I've been there almost 8 years, and I've had, a lot of people that I worked closely with have died, and that's not easy. They most of them never come back to visit me, but just the fact that I worked with them, and maybe 2 days before I was talking to them, now they're dead. That really kind of hits you. So I've had a lot of that too.
That would be so tough. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I used to not understand that people have addictive personalities, not just addictive behaviors. They don't choose to be that way. And yet, it's like a treadmill that just that they're stuck on, and it's just terrible. I couldn't imagine living my life like that. And yet there, for the grace of God, goes anybody, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just a terrible experience. But we've got less than a minute. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
No, other than I've really enjoyed this, Kat, and I'm glad that I did reach out and talk to you. I've had a great time tonight. I hope your audience enjoys me and enjoys reading my book.
Well, I think so. And that book is Ghosts and Me. You can get it on Amazon. Do you have a web page where they can go, or is Amazon the best bet?
Sorry. No, they can go to Amazon.com. They can go to OzarkMountain.com. I have a author's page there they can order it off of. Pretty much anywhere you can order books. I think it's still in some Walmarts, physically in Walmart, so you can get it there. But yeah, pretty much anywhere online that you can order books from. BarnesandNoble.com is a good place for it as well. So any of those places you can pick it up.
Well, I am so glad that you were here so that we could have this conversation. And yeah, when you start looking for battlefields, if you come down this way, let me know. Because
absolutely.
I've got a couple up my sleeve that we can wander through. And I'll take you to where I saw the Panzer tank.
That would be awesome.
Coming out of the woods at me one Saturday morning.
That would be cool.
Oh, it was not cool. But for everyone listening, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. You are the reason that we do these shows. And I am very thankful for every one of you. And if you could please just manifest this positivity. Bring it forward, bring it out, and be the change. We all can do that. Pray, meditate, whether it's your creator, whoever you want to have intervene for the positive good for our society. We really need it. Use that power that you have. I am manifesting my little heart out. I hope it works. I know it does, but you know what? We do. We just need to all focus on positivity and light and let the love come through, because you know what? This anger is killing people. Literally. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I'm very thankful. I know 2 hours is a big chunk out of your day when you've got a work week ahead, and I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me, Kat. It's been a blast.
I think so, too. And we will catch you. Oh, my goodness. This is Wednesday. We have... No, it's not. This is Sunday. Wrong show. But we have Denise Pridemore with Joe Centrone tomorrow night on the Paranormal Pride. I will be back on Wednesday with Nathaniel Gillis. And then we have Shelley live Friday with Ghost Talk Radio. So just come on back. Thanks for supporting us. Every one of your hosts just absolutely love having you. And we will see you on the flip side. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thanks for being here.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.